They laughed when the transport door dropped. Not loud, not cruel, just that quiet, tired kind of laugh soldiers use when they think the universe is playing a joke on them. Forward operating base Sentinel sat carved into the spine of a dead mountain along the Afghan border. Pre-dawn. Zero visibility beyond 200 meters. Thin air that scraped your lungs raw. The kind of place where even the wind sounded hostile. 72 hours. That's all we had left before scheduled withdrawal. 72 hours to hold ground that had already swallowed 2 recon teams whole. The armored convoy rolled in at 4:40, grinding to a halt in a storm of dust and diesel fumes. Men were already exhausted before the fight even started. 30 hours awake. Too much caffeine, not enough faith. Captain Garrett Thorne stood at the command post overlooking the valley, arms crossed over his vest, watching the rear hatch lower with a metallic groan that echoed against the ridgelines. We had requested a sniper team. We got one. 7 boots hit gravel. 6 men stepped out first, seasoned, mid-30s to early 40s. Faces carved by deployments nobody talks about anymore. They moved like gravity answered to them. Then the 7th figure stepped down. Silence, Corporal Alara Strand, 25, lean build. Rifle case carried in both hands instead of slung like the others. No swagger, no performance, just quiet assessment. Her eyes moved first, cataloging terrain, defensive positions, angles, exits. Someone behind the sandbags muttered, "You've gotta be kidding me." Nobody told him to shut up. The sun hadn't fully broken the ridge yet, but enough light hit her face to show something unsettling. She wasn't nervous. Lieutenant Hayes Brennan approached her with the expression of a man already disappointed. "Your Strand, yes, sir. Your file says you qualified expert at Bennying. Yes, sir. That don't mean much out here." A pause. "No, sir." "It doesn't." That answer didn't fit the script he expected. Most rookies defend themselves. Over-explain, drop credentials, try too hard. She didn't. She just stood there waiting for orders. And that's when Sergeant Lyle Dalton leaned toward Captain Thorne and said quietly, "Sector 4. Every soldier within earshot understood what that meant. Sector 4 wasn't the main line. It was the quiet ridge, the western drop-off, the least likely avenue of approach. Translation, put her somewhere she can't screw things up. Alara didn't react, didn't flinch, didn't argue. She just picked up her rifle case and started walking. Behind her, the comments floated through thin mountain air. Diversity hire made it to the mountains. Give her radio duty. 72 hours, just keep her out of the way. She heard every word, she always did. 3 years in uniform had trained her ears better than any scope. But she'd learned something early. You don't win arguments with opinions. You win them with results. Sector 4 overlooked a dried riverbed 200 meters below, flanked by boulders that cast long, jagged shadows like broken teeth. Sergeant Dalton pointed to a natural depression between 2 rock formations. "You set up there. Observation only. You call it in before you even think about pulling that trigger." "Clear, clear, Sergeant." She knelt, opened the case. The M110 lay inside, perfectly maintained, every surface clean, every edge deliberate, but mounted on top was something older, a custom scope. Not regulation, not issued, worn smooth in places where hands had gripped it through years of war. Her grandfather, Master Gunnery Sergeant William Strand, Desert Storm, Somalia. 52 confirmed kills. He'd handed her that scope the day she enlisted. "This glass has seen things most people never will," he told her. "Now it's yours, don't waste it." She never did. By 900, the heat was already punishing. 98 degrees and climbing, dust sticking to sweat, the valley below looking deceptively peaceful, too peaceful. Alara sketched her range card in precise lines. 180 meters riverbed curve, 310 meters boulder cluster, 475 meters treeline edge, 280 meters eastern outcropping. She paused at that last one. The outcropping. It jutted from the slope at an angle that offered commanding sightlines into sectors 2 and 3. Perfect for a technical weapon. Perfect for enfilade fire. Perfect for turning a defensive perimeter into a massacre. She raised her voice just enough. "Sergeant!" Dalton turned, irritation already loaded. "That rock formation at 280 meters on the eastern slope. If someone mounts a PKM or DSHK there, they can rake sectors 2 and 3 without taking return fire." Dalton squinted. "That's outside our sector. Yes, Sergeant, but Sector 3 can't see it from their angle, and Sector 2 can't traverse without exposing their flank. Silence. I didn't ask for analysis, Corporal, Dalton said flatly. Watch your lane. Yes, Sergeant. She wrote a small note in the margin, outcropping, high threat, unobserved. She didn't argue. Because arguing wouldn't save anyone, but noticing might. By afternoon, she'd identified dust disturbances on the far ridge, subtle shifts in vegetation near the riverbed. Tracks too deliberate to be random. Someone had scouted this base, recently. At 14:20 hours, she caught movement at the far tree line, 500 meters, a flash, gone. Possible contact, she called quietly. Dalton checked with binoculars. Nothing there, heat mirage, stay focused. It wasn't mirage. Human movement has rhythm. Animals don't move like that. Professionals do. Night fell fast. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in under an hour. Stars filled the sky like shattered glass. At 3:15, the world exploded. No warning, no probing fire. Just one massive detonation in Sector 2. The machine gun nest vanished in a white-hot flash. Shockwave slammed across the valley, then tracer fire. Red streaks slicing darkness from impossible angles. Impossible, except they were. They came from positions that shouldn't have had line of sight, unless someone had mapped every weakness. Contact all sectors. Captain Thorne's voice tore across the radio. Alara was already in position, scope up. Night vision engaged. Green chaos filled her optic. Multiple shooters in the riverbed. Coordinated, disciplined, then she heard it. The engine roaring up the eastern slope. Her stomach dropped. The technical crested exactly where she predicted, 280 meters. Machine gunner already swinging the barrel toward Sector 3. Technical on eastern outcropping, she transmitted, too late. The PKM opened up, 700 rounds per minute. Sector 3 disintegrated under sustained fire. Screaming filled the radio. Men she'd never met were dying exactly where she warned they would. Her crosshairs settled on the gunner. Perfect shot. But Dalton's voice cut through. Negative observation only. Another burst from the PKM. Bodies dropped. Sergeant, she said, steady as stone, they're killing us. He hesitated. Protocol versus reality. Another explosion ripped through Sector 1. The defensive line was collapsing. Can you make that shot? Dalton finally asked, voice barely audible. She didn't blink. I won't miss. 3 seconds, that's how long he stared at her. Then permission granted. She exhaled, slow, controlled. The world narrowed to geometry, 280 meters, uphill angle. Crosswind left to right. The gunner reloaded. 5 seconds, 4, 3, 2, she squeezed. The rifle cracked. Through the scope, she watched the gunner drop before the sound reached him. Silence hit the technical for half a second. Then chaos. Another enemy rushed for the weapon. She fired again. He collapsed over the tailgate. Over the radio, someone whispered, "Holy hell, she got him." Alara didn't celebrate, didn't breathe. She shifted to the fire team leader in the riverbed, the one organizing the assault. She wanted that shot 20 minutes ago. Now she took it. The battlefield changed in real time. Momentum shattered. Enemy coordination fractured. Professional assault turned into confusion. Sector 4, the quiet sector, had just become the most lethal position on the mountain. And everyone was watching. The battlefield didn't go quiet after her third shot. It changed. There's a difference. Silence is absence. This was hesitation. Enemy tracers that had been flowing in clean, coordinated lines started stuttering. Bursts became erratic. Movement lost rhythm. What had looked like a professional assault force now looked uncertain. One unexpected variable can do that. One shot from the wrong angle. One assumption shattered. Sector 3 status, Captain Thorne demanded over comms. Static, heavy breathing, someone coughing. 3's still up, we took hits. 2 down, 1 critical, but we're still in it. Alara adjusted her cheek weld and scanned the eastern slope. No further movement around the technical. Engine still idling. No one willing to climb into that kill zone again. Smart enemy. They learned fast, but so did she. Riverbed elements are breaking contact, Calloway muttered from 10 meters to her right. His voice was calm, almost detached. They weren't expecting resistance from this angle, because nobody expected Sector 4 to matter. Dalton keyed his radio again, voice different now, less edge, less dismissal. Captain Strand's holding the east and the riverbed. She's got it locked. There it was, not corporal, not rookie. Strand. Thorne responded quickly. Copy. Sector 4, you are cleared to engage targets of opportunity. Repeat, you are weapons free. Weapons free, 3 words that changed everything. Alara didn't respond verbally. She didn't need to. Her rifle answered instead. Another muzzle flash in the riverbed, another disciplined squeeze, another body dropped. She didn't feel satisfaction. She felt balance returning. The enemy had counted on dominance. She removed it. Over the next 10 minutes, she engaged selectively. No wasted rounds, no panic fire. She prioritized. Leadership, heavy weapons operators, spotters. She wasn't just shooting. She was dismantling structure. By 3:40 hours, the assault had stalled. Not defeated, stalled. And stalled assaults become retreats when momentum dies. Enemy pulling back, someone shouted across the net. Tracers thinned. Movement shifted away from the perimeter. The technical remained abandoned on the slope, 2 bodies draped over steel and canvas. Then it was over. Not completely, not permanently, but the first wave was done. Smoke drifted across the valley like ghosts reluctant to leave. Alara finally eased back from her scope. Her right shoulder throbbed from recoil. Her cheek was numb. Her breathing was steady. Dalton stared at her like he was looking at a different person than the one who stepped off that transport 24 hours earlier. "You dropped 6, Calloway said quietly. "Maybe 7. "Clean," she nodded once. 8, she corrected softly. He didn't argue. Down at Sector 3, medics were already working under red lens lights. The sounds of triage drifted faintly up the ridge. 2 dead, 4 wounded. If the technical had remained operational another 2 minutes, that number would have doubled, maybe tripled. Captain Thorne arrived at Sector 4 at first light. He climbed the ridge without speaking, boots crunching over rock and shell casings. When he stopped beside her position, he didn't immediately look at her. He looked through her scope. He adjusted magnification. He scanned the eastern slope, then he stepped back. "You called that outcropping 12 hours ago," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." Dalton shifted uncomfortably beside her. Thorne studied her face, no arrogance. "No, I told you so, just quiet presence." "How long you been shooting like that, Corporal?" "Since I was 6, sir." A corner of his mouth twitched. "That's so. My grandfather trained me. Marine." "Yes, sir," he nodded slowly. Figures. There was a long silence between them, the kind that recalibrates command dynamics. Finally, Thorne turned to Dalton. "Effective immediately, Sector 4 is primary overwatch. I want her eyes on every approach. You coordinate with her. Not she coordinates with you. You coordinate with her." Dalton nodded once. "Copy." Respect in the military doesn't arrive with introductions. It arrives with performance. And performance had just rewritten her standing. But battles don't end because you win one exchange. They adapt. By mid-morning, drone feed confirmed what Alara already suspected. Enemy forces had not retreated far. They repositioned beyond direct engagement range, reorganizing, preparing. This wasn't a random militia charge. This was structured, disciplined. Someone intelligent was leading them. In the command tent, Thorne spread satellite images across a folding table. Alara stood off to the side at first, until he gestured her forward. "Show me." She stepped in, pointed to terrain features without hesitation. "They staged here," she said, indicating a shallow depression 800 meters northeast. "Likely mortar tubes hidden under canvas." She shifted. "Secondary rally point here. Covered by that ridge line." Brennan watched her closely, not skeptical anymore, calculating. "You're assuming a coordinated multi-phase assault," he said. "Yes, sir. You think they'll hit again?" "Yes, sir." "When?" She studied the terrain through memory, not guessing, reading. "They'll wait until dusk, reduced visibility. They'll try to re-establish that eastern high ground or find another angle we can't see." Silence filled the tent. Thorne looked at Brennan. "You agree?" Brennan hesitated. Then, yeah. That single syllable weighed more than all the earlier laughter combined. Orders went out. Sector 3 reinforced. Eastern slope prearranged for mortar retaliation. Additional claymores repositioned. Thermal coverage expanded. And Sector 4, Alara adjusted her sandbags and returned to her scope, not triumphant, focused. Because the first assault had been a test, the real one was coming. Around 1600 hours, Hollister approached her cautiously. "Hey, Corporal." She didn't look away from her optic. "Yes, earlier, I mean, that was—" "You don't have to say anything," she replied calmly. He swallowed. "Still, that was badass. A faint flicker of something, not a smile, passed across her face. "Just doing my job," he nodded, embarrassed by his earlier doubt. Calloway spoke from behind them. "Job ain't the same for everyone," no one argued. As the sun began its descent, painting the valley gold and shadow, Dalton sat beside her position. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, "I should have listened." It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. But it was real. "Yes, Sergeant. You don't hold that against me?" She finally looked at him, gray eyes steady. "No, Sergeant, I just need you to listen next time." A pause. "There will be a next time," he muttered. She nodded. "Yes, Sergeant, there will." Because the enemy wasn't done, and neither was the valley stayed quiet, too quiet. By 1800 hours, the sky turned copper, and long shadows stretched across the dried riverbed like fingers reaching for the base. The smoke from the morning assault had thinned, but the memory of it hung heavy in the air. Fob's sentinel wasn't relaxed, it was bracing. Captain Thorne had shifted the entire defensive posture after the dawn attack. Sectors 2 and 3 reinforced, mortar tubes re-zeroed, claymores repositioned, extra ammunition distributed. And Sector 4 was no longer the quiet ridge, it was Overwatch. Alara adjusted her position as the temperature began its rapid desert drop. She re-verified distances, recalculated holds for the changing air density. Cold air thickened ballistic paths. Wind shifted direction as thermal currents reversed. Details mattered. Because the enemy commander out there, whoever he was, had proven something that morning. He learned fast. Drone footage earlier had confirmed movement beyond 900 meters, vehicles repositioning. Fighters regrouping behind ridgelines. They hadn't retreated. They'd reset. Dalton crouched beside her again, binoculars raised. "You really think they'll hit at dusk?" "Yes, Sergeant. Why not night?" "Because they want chaos. Dusk creates silhouette confusion. Shadows distort depth perception. It favors attackers who have already mapped us." He studied her profile. "You talk like you've done this before." She didn't look at him. "I have. Not Afghanistan, not this valley. But combat was geometry anywhere you placed it. At 1912 hours, Calloway spoke low from his position. "Movement. Northern ridge, far." Alara pivoted smoothly, dialing magnification up. "There." Heat signatures, small clusters, not advancing, positioning. "Observation elements," she said. "They're watching our reinforcement patterns." Dalton keyed the radio. "Captain, we have Overwatch elements on the northern ridge." Thorne's response came fast. "Hold fire unless engaged." "Let's see what they're setting up." Alara tracked one figure longer than the others. He moved differently, more deliberate, stopping frequently, scanning with optics, not just counting soldiers. "Reading them, spotter," she murmured. Dalton glanced at her. "You sure?" "Yes." The man knelt, stabilized, and pointed toward Sector 3. Moments later, thump. Mortar round launched from unseen distance. 5 seconds. Impact. It landed short, 40 meters outside the wire, a ranging shot. "Adjusting," Alara said calmly. Second launch. Impact. Closer. 20 meters from sandbag perimeter. "They've got forward correction," Calloway muttered. Third launch. This one landed inside the outer defensive ring. Explosion ripped through empty ground near an ammo crate. Close enough. Dalton's jaw tightened. "They're walking it in." "Permission to engage spotter," Alara said. Dalton didn't hesitate this time. "Engage." Her crosshairs settled. Distance, 612 meters. Wind, light right to left drift. Elevation, slight uphill. Longer shot, not impossible, just mathematics. She slowed her breathing. Inhale. Half exhale, hold, squeeze. The rifle cracked. Half-second delay. The spotter's body jerked backward and went still. "Impact," Calloway confirmed. The mortar fire stopped, not instantly, but enough. Without forward correction, blind tubes lost precision. 2 more rounds landed wide. Then silence. Dalton lowered his binoculars slowly. "That was 600 plus. Yes, Sergeant. You didn't hesitate." "No, Sergeant, because hesitation was how you lost men." Over the next hour, enemy activity intensified along 3 separate ridgelines. They weren't attacking yet. They were shaping the battlefield, testing reaction times, mapping return fire angles. Thorne called for limited illumination rounds at 2,000 hours. The valley flashed white for seconds at a time, exposing terrain in harsh clarity. In those flashes, Alara saw it. Movement in the eastern low ground, not toward the old outcropping, lower, smarter. "They're adapting," she said. Dalton followed her scope. Where? She adjusted magnification and shifted slightly right. There, depression at 350 meters east, natural bowl, it's shielded from direct fire from Sector 2. He swore under his breath. They're building a new firing point. Yes, the first assault had failed because of one exposed high ground position, so now they'd choose defilade, protected, hidden, professional. Thorne's voice cut in over comms. All sectors prepare for second wave, estimated 30 minutes. Alara felt it again, that electric tightening in her chest, not fear, anticipation. This wasn't over. It was escalating. Hollister shifted nervously behind his rifle. You think it'll be worse? Yes, she said plainly. He swallowed. Why? Because they'll fix what failed. At 2028 hours, the first RPG streaked across the valley. It slammed into Sector 1's outer barrier. Simultaneously, small arms fire erupted from the northern ridge. Diversion. Then heavy machine gun fire erupted from the eastern depression. Lower angle, harder to detect. Rounds tore into Sector 2's reinforced sandbags. They rebuilt the angle, Dalton breathed. Alara was already engaging. First target, assistant gunner feeding belt. Drop. Second target, shooter leaning from cover to adjust tripod. Drop. But the depression gave them cover between bursts, smarter than the technical, harder to neutralize. Multiple shooters, Calloway reported. At least 4. Alara adjusted position slightly to widen angle. It exposed more of her shoulder, risk trade-off, necessary. She waited for rhythm, burst. Pause, reload. In that reload window, she fired. One more down. The machine gun faltered but didn't stop. Another operator took position, disciplined, determined. Dalton leaned closer. Can you collapse that position? Not alone, he keyed radio. Captain, we need mortar on eastern depression grid. Before he finished, a round impacted 5 meters from their ridge. Dirt and rock showered over them. They'd been spotted. Alara, they see us. Of course they did. Any competent enemy would triangulate her muzzle flash by now. She shifted immediately, grabbed rifle. Rolled left into secondary micro-position she'd pre-identified hours earlier. Always have a second nest. Grandfather's rule. Another mortar round hit her old location. Direct. If she'd stayed, she didn't finish the thought. She reacquired target from new angle. The depression exposed more of its interior from here. Better line. Better solution. The machine gunner rose to reestablish dominance. She fired. Impact. Silence from the depression, not permanent, but broken. Dalton exhaled slowly. They're not just probing anymore. No, she said. This is coordinated escalation. The valley erupted fully now. RPGs from the north, small arms from west, machine guns east, 3-direction pressure. They weren't trying to overrun. They were trying to stretch, find the breaking point, and they still hadn't committed their main force. Alara felt it, like the calm before a storm you can smell before you see. The real push hadn't come yet, and when it did, it wouldn't be half measures. By the time the sun dipped behind those shattered rooftops, the air felt different, heavy. Like the whole damn city was holding its breath. You ever get that feeling? Like something bad ain't just possible, it's scheduled. We were posted up inside a half-collapsed school building on the east side of the sector. Paint peeling, desks flipped, crayon drawings still taped to the walls like ghosts of normal life. It was supposed to be a quiet recon hold. Supposed to is the biggest lie in combat. I was on Overwatch again, 3rd floor, broken window, bipod locked in, scope scanning the alleyways. Then I saw him, same hostile from 2 days earlier, tall, lean, moving like he had confidence. Not random, not sloppy. This guy was coordinating something. He wasn't alone this time, 6 armed men. Military posture, good spacing, radios. This wasn't local militia, this was organized. Viper 1, this is Angel 6, I whispered into comms. We got coordinated movement north alley, 6 tangos. Possible leadership element. Static, then Tors came back. Copy that, stay eyes on. But here, what bothered me. They weren't scouting, they were setting up. 2 of them planted something near a sewer grate. IED, my jaw tightened. They're rigging the choke point, I said. If our convoy rolls through tomorrow, we're walking into a kill box. Silence. Then command answered, not Tors. Different voice. Cold. Angel 6, confirm visual before escalating. We cannot engage without PID and authorization. Authorization. I zoomed in tighter. Clear as day, wires, trigger device. Guard positions covering angles. PID confirmed, I said. They're prepping an ambush. Pause. Seconds feel like hours when you're staring at men about to bury your friends. Stand by. I hated those words. Stand by while enemies prepare to kill your unit. Through the scope, I watched the tall one give hand signals. Calm, controlled. He looked right up toward my building, not at me, but close enough, like he knew someone was watching. Angel 6, Tor's cut in, voice tense now. Convoy ETA moved up. They're rolling tonight, 30 minutes out. My pulse spiked. They'll hit that IED. We're trying to reroute. Trying. 30 minutes. The insurgents started dispersing. 2 stayed near the trigger. Others melted into side streets. If they detonated early, civilian casualties. If they waited, our convoy gets shredded. I breath slow, do the math. Distance 312 meters, wind light cross from west. Elevation minor drop, 2 primary threats on detonator, no authorization yet. Angel 6, hold fire. That was Tor's, that was command again. Hold fire while 6 armed men wire a bomb for your brothers. I watched one of them light a cigarette. Laughing, laughing. And something inside me shifted. Not rage, clarity. Tor's, I said quietly, bypassing command frequency. You trust me? Beat. Always. I can neutralize both triggers in under 3 seconds. After that, we push ground team to disarm. Command says stand down. I know what command says. Convoy radio chatter crackled in background now. Engines, movement, time bleeding out. If I waited for paperwork, body bags would be the paperwork. I centered my reticle on the first trigger man's upper chest. Exhale, half breath, break. The suppressed shot cracked through the dusk. He dropped instantly. Before the second one even processed what happened, I adjusted 1.2 mils right. Second round, down, chaos erupted in the alley. The remaining hostiles scattered, firing blindly toward rooftops. Contact, contact! Someone yelled through their comms, wrong language, wrong panic. Angel 6 fired, Tors barked on net. Angel 6 disobeyed direct, command started, then the convoy lead cut in. Holy hell, explosion device visual confirmed neutralized, we're holding position. Silence followed. The kind that tells you the worst didn't happen, but it could have. Rounds started smacking into the school walls. Concrete chipped near my window, they were shooting back now, and they were angry. Ground team moving, Tors shouted. Angel, we need cover, I'm on it. I shifted targets, picking off muzzle flashes. One hostile dropped behind a car. Another tried, dragging the body of the trigger man. Third shot. Fourth, the tall leader, gone, vanished in the smoke and confusion. That bothered me more than the bullets. Because men like him don't disappear, they reposition. After 5 intense minutes, it was over. Surviving insurgents retreated. EOD secured the device. Convoy rerouted safely, no casualties. No folded flags, but command wasn't celebrating. Angel 6, the cold voice returned, you will report for disciplinary review upon return to base. There it was, I saved them. And now I was in trouble. Tors came on private channel again. You did the right thing. Yeah, I said, watching the alley through my scope one last time, smoke drifting, bodies still. But he's still out there, the tall one, the planner. And something told me this wasn't just a random ambush. This was retaliation, and I had just painted a target on my back. Back at base, nobody clapped. Nobody said, good shot. Nobody said, you saved us. They just stared. You ever walk into a room knowing you did the right thing, but feeling like you're the problem? That was me, helmet under my arm. Rifle cleared, boots still dusty from rooftop concrete. I stepped into the command tent and the air felt colder than the desert night outside. Colonel Harding didn't raise his voice. That would have been easier. You directly disobeyed a hold fire order, he said, hands folded behind his back. Yes, sir, you could have compromised a larger intelligence operation. With respect, sir, a convoy was 30 minutes from driving over an IED. His jaw tightened. You are a sniper specialist. Not a strategist. That hit harder than I expected. Not a strategist. Like I just got lucky. Like I wasn't calculating wind, movement, intent, timing. Like I hadn't just prevented 6 body bags and folded flags. Tors stood off to the side, silent. He couldn't step in. Chain of command is a cage sometimes. Harding continued. There will be a formal review. Until then, you are removed from forward overwatch. Removed. Benched. Grounded while the tall insurgent leader, the one who slipped away, was still breathing. Yes, sir, I repeated. I walked out before my voice could crack. Outside, the base hummed with generators and distant rotor wash. Soldiers moved around me like nothing had changed. But everything had. In the barracks, I sat on my bunk and stared at my rifle case. My hands were steady in combat. Right now, they were shaking, not from fear. From the pressure building behind my ribs, if I had waited, they'd be dead. If I hadn't acted, I could live with myself. The answer came fast, no, but now command was watching me, questioning me, waiting for me to mess up. And the tall one, he knew there was a sniper up there, he knew someone ruined his plan. This wasn't over, it was just shifting. And I had the sinking feeling that next time, he wouldn't miss. They pulled me off Overwatch for 5 days. 5. You don't realize how loud your own thoughts are until they take your rifle away. I was reassigned to logistics support, inventory checks, perimeter walk, busy work, the kind they give you when they don't trust your trigger finger but still need your boots on the ground. Officially, it was temporary reassignment pending review. Unofficially, I'd embarrassed command, but here's the thing nobody expected. The tall insurgent leader didn't disappear, he adapted. On the 6th night, the first mortar landed inside our outer wire, not near it, inside. The blast shook the entire compound, sirens lit up the sky red. Dust poured from the ceiling of the barracks as soldiers scrambled for helmets and vests. I was already up before the second impact. Boom, closer. This wasn't random harassment fire. The spacing was controlled, adjusted. Whoever was calling those shots had eyes on us. Counter-battery team, locate source, Harding's voice echoed over base-wide comms. But I already knew something was wrong. Mortar teams need spotters. Spotters need elevation. Elevation near our base was limited to 2 ridgelines. Both were under periodic drone observation. So how were they adjusting so accurately? Third round hit the motor pool. Direct hit. Flames climbed fast. That's when the realization hit me like ice water. They weren't firing blind from outside. They had someone closer, maybe inside. My stomach dropped. I ran toward the tactical operations tent without waiting for permission. Tors intercepted me halfway. You're restricted from. Check the drone feeds, I cut him off. Now! He hesitated half a second, then followed. Inside the TOC, screens flickered with thermal and night vision imagery. Chaos filled the radios. Zoom sector west perimeter, I said. Operator hesitated, glancing at Harding. Do it, Tors snapped. The feed shifted, tree line, dark, still. Then I saw it. A faint flicker, not heat from a mortar tube, too small, too steady. A laser designator, my blood ran cold. They're not guessing, I whispered. They're walking rounds and using a spotter. Range, Tors asked. Under 600 meters. That meant one thing, they weren't launching from the ridgeline. They were launching from dead ground, a drainage basin we'd considered too exposed to use. Unless someone had mapped our blind spots. The mortar fire stopped suddenly. Silence. That's worse than explosions, because silence means repositioning. Harding turned toward me slowly. You have something to say, specialist? I swallowed. Yes, sir. I stepped closer to the screen and pointed at the thermal distortion again. That's him. Who? The leader from the alley. He didn't retaliate randomly. He studied us. He baited me into revealing position. He learned our response time. Harding's expression hardened. You're speculating. No, sir, I'm recognizing pattern escalation. He failed at the convoy. So he shifted to psychological warfare. He hits inside our wire, proves we're vulnerable, forces you to question internal security. Tors looked between us. Another alarm sounded, perimeter breach alert, sector west. There it was. They're probing the fence now, someone shouted. Diversion. Mortars weren't the main attack. They were drawing us outward. Harding finally looked at me differently, not like a reckless sniper, like an asset. What are you suggesting? He asked. I didn't hesitate. Give me my rifle back. The tent went quiet. Outside, distant gunfire crackled near the west fence. He's escalating, I continued. He wants chaos, he wants us reacting. Harding studied me for a long second. Then he said the words I'd been waiting for. You get one shot at this, Angel 6. I nodded once, because I already knew. This wasn't disciplinary review anymore. This was a chess match. And the tall insurgent? He just made his boldest move. They handed my rifle back without ceremony. No speech. No apology, just cold metal against my palms like it had been waiting for me. Some people think revenge is about anger. It's not. It's about balance. And right now, the scale was tilted. I climbed the South Communications Tower instead of my old Overwatch perch. If he had studied my previous position, and I was betting he had, then I wasn't giving him the same angle twice. Wind was light. visibility clear, night vision engaged. Below me, base security teams were reinforcing the west perimeter where the diversion had triggered alarms. Floodlights cut through dust and smoke. Radios overlapped in frantic layers. Chaos. Exactly what he wanted. But I wasn't looking at the fence. I was looking beyond it. The drainage basin stretched low and uneven about 500 meters out. From ground level, it looked useless. Too shallow for concealment. From elevation, different story. Thermal scan, nothing. Scan again, slow. Patience beats panic every time. There, faint heat bloom behind a collapsed irrigation pipe. Too controlled to be an animal. Too steady to be residual heat. Spotter position, but he wouldn't be alone. Mortar crews don't operate solo. Minimum 3-man element. I adjusted magnification and widened the field. Another flicker lower, shielded. Likely tube position set deeper into dead ground. Smart, very smart. He learned our drone patterns. Waited for rotation gaps. Timed the mortar barrage just before shift change. Calculated, but he made one mistake. He assumed I'd be benched. Angel 6 has visual, I whispered into comms. Multiple heat signatures, basin sector Charlie 2. Confirm probable mortar cell. Harding's voice came through, tighter now but no longer dismissive. Rules of engagement. Hostile artillery inside effective range of base. Cleared to neutralize. A pause, then cleared. Simple word, heavy weight. I centered my reticle on the spotter first. Because cut the eyes and the hands go blind. Distance, 547 meters, wind minimal, breathing steady. Exhale, squeeze. The suppressed crack barely echoed before the thermal signature collapsed sideways. The mortar crew reacted instantly, scrambling, one grabbing the tube, another reaching for equipment. Too late. Second shot, assistant gunner down. Third shot, tube knocked sideways mid-adjustment. No explosion, no return fire, just sudden confusion in the basin. Base perimeter gunfire slowed. Diversion team realized support wasn't landing. Impact neutralized, I confirmed calmly. But I didn't stop scanning, because he wasn't there. The tall one doesn't expose himself in the first wave. He watches, he evaluates. And sure enough, 40 meters east of the collapsed pipe, a new movement pattern emerged. Slow, controlled, retreating, not panicked. That was him. Even in thermal, you can see discipline. He paused once, crouched low, scanning toward my tower, not directly, but close enough, like he felt me. Our last encounter in the alley wasn't finished. This was the continuation. I tracked him carefully, range extending. 600 meters, 620, still within capability, but wind picking up slightly from east, longer shot, riskier. Command chatter filled my earpiece, perimeter secure, no casualties, fire contained. Mission technically accomplished, but the war between me and him, still open. I adjusted my position on the tower railing, steadied the bipod. Tor's voice cut in quietly. You see there, leader? Yes, take it if you've got it. That was trust, not from command. From my unit, the tall insurgent reached the edge of the basin, about to disappear into urban shadow. One step more and he'd be gone again. I slowed my breathing. Revenge isn't rage, it's precision. Reticle lifted slightly for wind drift, chest center mass. And for the first time since this started, I felt completely calm. Because this one wasn't about disobeying orders. It wasn't about proving myself. It was about ending the escalation before it spiraled further. Finger tightened on the trigger, and the night held its breath. The trigger broke clean. The recoil was soft, familiar, almost comforting. Through the scope, I saw the round travel in my mind before I saw the impact. The tall insurgent jerked mid-step, but he didn't fall. The round clipped his upper shoulder, spun him sideways, knocked him to a knee, wind drift, minimal but enough. He was tougher than most. Instead of freezing, he rolled behind a fractured concrete slab at the basin's edge. Smart, wounded but not done. Impact, I reported. Target hit, not neutralized. Gunfire erupted from the urban edge ahead of him. Cover fire. 2 hidden shooters I hadn't detected earlier lit up the tower with suppressive bursts. Rounds pinged off metal supports above my head. He planned an exit corridor, of course he did. Angel, get down, Tors shouted. I'm good, I muttered, shifting position lower against the tower frame. Thermal scan, I reacquired one of the supporting shooters. Exhale, squeeze, down. Second shooter relocated quickly, zigzag movement toward alley cover. Sloppy now, emotional, bad combination. Second shot landed center mass. Silence returned for half a second, then I saw him again. The tall one, dragging himself with his uninjured arm, bleeding but moving, determined to reach the alley shadows. I adjusted for elevation drop. Wind stronger now, brushing left to right. Longer shot, smaller visible target. This was the moment, end it clean, but something shifted inside me, not doubt, recognition. This man wasn't random chaos, he studied us, adapted. Countered strategy with strategy. He was the only one escalating intelligently. If I missed again, he'd vanish into the city and come back sharper. No more warnings, no more mortar games. Next time would be worse. Clear back, Blessed, I'm taking final shot, I said quietly. No one answered, they were listening, watching through feeds, judging. I steadied my breathing, in for 4, hold out for 4. Reticle settled just ahead of his movement line. Lead the motion, trust the math. He paused for a fraction of a second, adjusting grip on his rifle. That hesitation was human, and human is predictable. I squeezed. The shot cracked through the night. Through thermal, I saw the impact Bloom's center torso. His body stiffened, then collapsed forward onto the dust. No roll, no crawl, no recovery, still. I held scope for 10 full seconds, 15. Nothing, target neutralized, I confirmed. The words felt heavier than I expected. Ground team mobilized quickly, sweeping the basin with armored vehicles. Spotlights cut through the dark. 5 minutes later, Tors came over comms. Visual confirmation, HVT is down. High-value target, that's what he officially became, not mastermind, not rival, not ghost. Just another acronym in a report, but for me, he was the escalation that tested everything. The base quieted slowly, fires contained, perimeter secured. I finally lowered my rifle. My hands weren't shaking this time, they were steady. Because this wasn't revenge fueled by ego, it was resolution. He escalated, I adapted. He studied, I studied harder. And when it mattered most, precision won. As I climbed down from the tower, Harding was waiting at the base ladder. He didn't smile, didn't congratulate. He just looked at me for a long moment and said, "Good shooting, specialist." Simple, but it carried weight. Respect earned the hard way. I nodded once. Yes, sir. But inside, I knew something deeper. This wasn't about proving myself to command. It was about protecting my people. And tonight, no folded flags, no casualty notifications. Just another sunrise waiting on the horizon. Dawn came quiet. No sirens, no mortar alarms, no smoke climbing into the sky. Just that pale desert light stretching across the base like nothing had happened. But everything had. They loaded his body into a transport vehicle before sunrise. Intelligence would comb through gear, devices, notes. Analysts would turn him into bullet points and threat assessments. To them, he'd become data. To me, he was the moment I stopped trying to prove myself and started trusting myself. I sat alone on the edge of the communications tower platform after stand down, rifle across my lap, gloves off. Hands finally relaxed. You know what nobody tells you about combat? The loud part isn't the hardest. It's the quiet after, that space where your brain replays every shot, every decision. Every alternate ending that almost happened. If I had waited in the alley, convoy destroyed. If I had obeyed the hold fire, folded flags. If I had missed tonight, more mortars, maybe worse. Leadership questioned my judgment. The enemy tested my limits. Pressure tried to crack me. But here's the truth I learned out there. Confidence isn't loud, it's earned in silence. Later that morning, Harding called a short formation. Nothing dramatic, just routine acknowledgement of successful defensive action. He didn't mention my name first. He mentioned the unit. That mattered more, because none of this was about me being right. It was about them going home. Tors caught me afterward near the motor pool. "You good?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah," he studied me a second longer. "You know you changed some minds." "Not trying to," I said. He smirked. "Doesn't matter, you did." Maybe that was the real victory, not the shot, not the HVT. But shifting the narrative, they saw the limp before they saw the skill. They saw the gender before the precision. They saw emotion before discipline. Now, they saw results, and results don't argue. That night I cleaned my rifle slower than usual. Careful, methodical, not because I had to, because it grounded me. Metal, oil, fabric, routine. War tries to turn you into reaction. Discipline turns you back into decision. Before lights out, I wrote one line in my small field notebook, something I'd started doing after tough missions. It said, "Trust the training. Protect the team, let the results speak." That's the moral nobody puts in recruitment posters. You don't fight to be respected. You fight to keep others breathing. Respect is just the byproduct. The tall insurgent thought escalation would break us. Instead, it sharpened us. And me? I stopped waiting for permission to be capable. I already was. When the next mission came, because there's always a next one, I stepped forward without hesitation. Not reckless, not emotional, calm. Because I understood something deeper now. Revenge burns hot and fast. Responsibility burns steady, and steady wins wars.